he was introduced to the world of Westminster. He says he was trafficked from Northern Ireland and that this picture was taken by one of his abusers.
I was used as a boy toy. I was an object, a sexual object.
Rumours of an alleged ring in the top echelons of society have been circulating for years, but for the first time, Richard's account of what happened to him as a boy links 3 locations. Dolphin Square, a luxury complex popular with MPs and civil servants. Kincora Boys' Home in Belfast, where boys were systematically abused. And Elm Guest House, a former gay brothel where young children are also said to have been. But it's here, at Elm Guest House in South London, that he says he faced his most violent experience. It was raided by police in 1982. Newspapers at the time said that at least 3 MPs were questioned. It's claimed the late Sir Cyril Smith was a visitor. It was being used as a gay brothel, and it was alleged children as young as 10 were abused. It's the first time Richard's been back, and the flashbacks come fast.
I was tied up here. I don't know why I was tied up, but I was tied up. With my hands behind my back. I do remember that. Laying down, and they took photographs. Other men were here. Other men came into the room. It just wasn't this one man.
There are families out there searching of loved ones lost. There's a lifetime of hurting, praying one day they'll find the missing.
Vishal MAHOTRA was an 8-year-old boy who was abducted in 1981. 7 months later, his body would be found cut in half in a wooded area in West Sussex. Could this boy's murder be linked back to the famous Elm Guest House, where police investigated a child dream that allegedly involved at least 30 prominent individuals in London? The Elm House was reported at the time as being used as a brothel, where children as young as 10 were being abused and possibly even being murdered. Hello, my name is Holly. Join me today for this rarely discussed true crime mystery right here in the Murder She Shed. If this is your first time at the Murder She Shed, just make sure you smash that like and subscribe button so you can find me again in this big YouTube world. A nerdy girl and her dogs that always are interrupting their videos. Sometimes gets lost in here in this big YouTube world. So help a gal out. Hey, guess what? I'm almost at 20,000 subscribers as fireworks go off. You can help me reach my goal if you subscribe. And then I'll bring additional fireworks into the picture. Because, yeah, that's exciting. Okay, let's get back into this case. In 1980, 8-year-old Vishal MAHOTRA had just moved with his father and younger sister to London from India. His mother and father had just gotten a divorce, so she remained in India. Vishal was a bright boy who soon would move to the top of his class at St. James Primary School. Father said he was gifted and could have become whatever he wanted when he grew up, but he did not get that chance. On July 29, 1981, every eye was turned to the television to watch one of the most viewed events in history. Fortunately for the MAHOTRA family, they had a bird's eye view of the wedding of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Vishal's father was able to bring his family along with the children's nanny to his office, where they could watch the wedding from way up high out of his office window. Vishal's sister thought this was an incredible, unforgettable day, as did most little girls at that time who dreamed of becoming a princess, as well as me. I watched every second of that royal wedding. I think most little girls felt the same as Vishal's sister. It was an amazing day, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. Vishal, however, wasn't quite as impressed and lost interest rather quickly. After watching Diana's horse-drawn carriage pass under their office window, the family decided to leave early before the crowd of people got to bed. They caught the train, and after arriving at Putney Station, had to walk the rest of the way towards their home. The roads were unusually quiet and kind of eerie, as most people in London were still at the royal wedding or watching it on TV. Vishal's father went ahead and started the walk home while the nanny and 2 children were going to walk to the store for cough medicine first, because I guess Vishal had a cough and they were going to go on a trip, so they needed cough medicine before they went on this trip. Somewhere along the walk to the store, Vishal said he was too tired and wanted to walk home too. It was only a little ways, and Vishal's father had let him walk the distance alone before, so the nanny allowed Vishal to walk alone. After she got back to the family's home around 3 p.m., Vishal's dad was asleep, but she couldn't find Vishal. The nanny believed that Vishal was probably just out just playing and goofing off, so she also took a nap. They had been up super early for the wedding, and they were all just exhausted. When she awoke and found Vishal had still not returned, she explained the situation to his father. The 2 made inquiries of neighbors as to whether they had seen him. When they could not find Vishal by 7 p.m., he was reported missing to the police. Following his disappearance, an extensive search ensued with some 300 people and police using thermal imaging cameras, but no signs of him were found. He had simply disappeared. On February 28, 1982, 7 months after Vishal's disappearance, bones were found by 2 pigeon shooters the following year in remote marshland at a farm in West Sussex. They discovered a skull, 7 rib bones, and a section of vertebrae. There was no traces of the legs, pelvis, or lower spine. And at the time, it was unknown if it was Vishal that had been found. No clothing was ever found.
Had you been trying to prepare yourself for news like this?
I thought I was prepared. It was a bad shock, yes.
What were you hoping that had happened to him?
Somehow I knew what had happened, and I said it all along in the past. When he had gone missing, I've told my feelings that obviously somebody has taken him away, which seems to be the case anyway.
Right around the time that Vishal's body was found, his father received a call from a man who sounded in his late teens and early 20s. This boy said he had a lot of information about rings where politicians, judges, and some police officers were involved. This caller said he believed Vishal had been abducted by a from this gang and taken to the Elm Guest House, which was only a few minutes away from where he had actually been abducted. The caller believed Vishal could have been abused and then murdered at the Elm Guest House. Vishal's father had recorded the whole 15-minute call and took it to the authorities. 4 months after fragments of Vishal's skeleton were found, police raided the Elm Guest House. The raid was widely reported at the time to be linked to the boy's disappearance, and among the dozens of people questioned, 30 were reportedly prominent public figures. The Elm Guest House was a hotel in Rocks Lane near Barnes Common in southwest London. In the early 1980s, it was run by husband and wife Harry and Carol Kashar and was advertised as a gay guest house. This area was a popular cruising spot for homosexual men. It was rumored, however, that the Elm Guest House held many dark secrets about high-ranking officials and a child sex ring that was connected to this house. So 2 young officers were selected to pose as a gay couple to go undercover as guests. At the door, they were greeted by a youth called Lee, who aged 16 was 5 years below what was then the gay age of consent, which at the time was 21. Once inside, the 2 officers were introduced to other members of the guest house staff, including a man named Nellie and a barman named Earl, both of whom called the policeman Dear. Lee then took the officers upstairs. Nellie asked if the officers were married, but he said if so, it didn't matter anyway. There would be no questions asked about their identity. He added the staff at the guest house were unimpeachably discreet and were all gay apart from Miss Kajar. After being shown their room, the policemen were asked by Lee if they knew what other services were on offer at Elm Guest House. They were told there was a sauna in room 7, a selection of gay videos in a top floor room in which Lee massaged guests. One of the undercover officers asked a member of the staff whether children might also be among the services on offer. While no explicit reference to this was made, the enthusiastic answer included a reference to a youngster who was going to be a lovely queen one day. Later, the undercover officers met Carol herself in the guest house bar. She spoke of 16-year-old Lee as her little queen and then introduced them to a 10-year-old boy, allegedly saying that the child could show the men some new tricks. Carol called the 10-year-old my little queen and referred to him as she. They received massages from the 16-year-old boy and then afterwards were invited to a sauna party the following weekend. The couple told the undercover officers because of the high expected attendance of 200 guests, the men just might have to share a bed with a number of other regulars. So, be sleeping with a lot of men in one bed. Men, boys, who knows what would occur. So then plans were made to return the following Saturday so that a police raid would coincide with the sauna party. On the day of the raid, the undercover men returned and paid their entrance charges. One of them was wearing a fake plaster cast on his arm, under which the cast there was a device which, when pressed, would send the signal for the other policeman to enter. The plan was messed up, however, by Carol, who, when she opened the door, hugged the officer with the cast on. During that hug, the device was pressed, which caused the other officers to come rushing in. Only around 20 individuals had showed up at the party before that signal was sent. I find this a bit odd that their cover was busted so early in before the bigwigs showed up. It's kind of odd coincidence that it was accidentally pushed. During the search of the place, whips, chains, and ropes were discovered at the guest house. 16-year-old Lee was present, and the 10-year-old was present during the actual raid, too. The 10-year-old boy was interviewed by police in the presence of a social worker. His initial testimony was truly shocking. He discussed how the first time he was introduced to sex was by watching two men, and then afterwards, one of the men to him. A few weeks later, the young boy was again at the guest house when Carol told him that other men would do tricks with him, for which he would get paid, she said. The boy told her that he didn't want to do it, but Carol, he said, told him the money was too good to turn down. The boy said that afterwards, a foreign man who was staying at the guest house came into the room in which the boy was asleep. He woke the boy up and he got undressed. The boy said that he told the man that he didn't want to do anything and he should just get his money back from Carol. Instead, the man said nothing, and despite the boy's struggles, he then raped him. After that, Carol would leave Vaseline in the room with the young boy before men continued showing up to abuse the boy. One of them assaulted him while dressed in a military uniform. Carol began to refer to him as Little Queen. In return for being abused, he would receive video games, jewelry, and cash. The money the men paid to abuse the boy was put in a cash box behind the guest house bar. After the boy had been Carol would often come into the room and replace his soiled bedclothes. The boy also stated that an abuser he called Uncle Leon may have been a politician and came from the big house. This information, however, was omitted in the manuscript of the interview and was only found out because the social worker in the room at the time of the boy's interview said that was also part of that interview. They were apparently covering for this bigwig politician. A police surgeon who examined the boy shortly after his rescue found that he had injuries consistent with male over a period of time. By the following year, the boy, who was in local authority care, was insisting that his original statement was largely untrue. Officials believe that Carol had managed to communicate with the boy in order to buy his silence. Later, Lee, the 16-year-old, would come forward with strange allegations himself. He said the charges against him were dropped as long as he kept quiet. He claimed that the two undercover officers that came to the house before the had actually had sex with him after the massage and told him that a raid was going to happen. for him to not say a word about what would occur at that Elm House. Lee claimed he was stripped and essayed by officers after the raid, too. It said police later threatened him with violence unless he kept his mouth shut. Carroll was found guilty at the Old Bailey in 1983 only of running a disorderly house and possessing obscene videos. She was then given a suspended sentence. So she basically got nothing for what occurred at that house. There would be other files linked to the Elm Guest House, however. After the raid, Carroll began to get harassed and was worried that she would end up dead. She was receiving threatening phone calls and being followed, she said. She said that she knew it was because of the information she knew about the link between the Elm House and Grafton Close Children's Home. There were allegations that children from Grafton Close were taken to Elm Guest House to be abused. She had told a campaigner from the National Association of Young People in Care that she had photographs or videos of many established figures at her hotel, including a bishop. One was a photograph allegedly showing a former cabinet minister in a sauna with a naked boy. Carroll had logbooks, names, times, dates, even pictures of people who went in and out of that Elm Guest House. She had a lot of evidence that could damage a lot of high-ranking officials. She feared that's why they wanted her dead. The heavy smoking and also heavy drinking Carroll was found dead one Sunday in June 1990 in her home in Barnes, southwest London, with syringes and vials and 2 letters described as notes next to her bed. She was 47. She had died allegedly due to an insulin overdose, but many people suspected that she had been murdered. In 2014, Operation Fernbridge was started in order to look into allegations of abuse at both Grafton Close Children's Home and the Elm Guest House. Colin Peters, a foreign officer barrister, was allegedly a regular at the Elm Guest House. Peters' presence at the Elm Guest House had been alleged by various sources. One who did not want to be named said Peter was named by a number of boys who claimed they were abused by him. Another one said he was a regular and was named by 2, possibly 3 boys as a man who abused them. Peter used camera equipment and rented a conference room inside that guest house. There was only one reason to do that, and that was to make, corn films of the boys. There was a sauna attached to the room, which was also used during these filmings. He described himself to boys as a mother hen, and they were his chickens. And actually, a lot of predators, I'm going to get in trouble for using that word. I'm going to probably get demonetized anyway on this whole video, but they called them chickens. But I've also heard calling themselves chicken hawks because they abuse the chickens. So that's just creepy, I know. Peters was seen as a key figure in the Westminster ring. One of the boys he allegedly abused was Peter Hatton Borshin, who lived at the Grafton Close Children's Home. The young boy had been placed in the children's home after his mother had committed, the bad word, hurt herself in the 1980s. She actually, I think what I heard is she threw herself in front of a train. How tragic is that boy had to go through that? And then he was give up to this care home after that. Then after he was give up to the care home, Peter was abused by these people at the children's home. Peter took his own life in 1994 at the age of 28. His past tormented him until his death. John Stingmore was the deputy manager of Grafton Close. He abused Peter. He was known to abuse him and many others that lived in the children's home. Stingmore was besties with a priest named Father Tony McSweeney, and he counseled children at the Grafton Close. The priest said he watched footage featuring boys as young as 10 on a home cinema with his bestie John Stingmore. McSweeney's victim, who was 15 at the time of the abuse, said the priest would regularly visit Grafton Close. With his friend Stingmore, McSweeney would force this boy, the victim, to expose himself and to be touched under the pretense that they had to make sure he was clean. McSweeney enjoyed watching the boys be essayed by other parents. He liked to be a voyeur, how do you say that, voyeurism? He liked to watch, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. McSweeney and Stingmore would often take Grafton Close boys on holidays together. Father Tony was arrested when officers found indecent images of boys on his computers, and evidence presented to his trial revealed that he had been offending as far back as the 1970s when he began training for the priesthood. They found on his laptop thousands of recently downloaded images, including the most serious category of forensic examinations showed that he often used the keyword boy when searching for. For 4 decades, he was an active in the church, and the authorities, including the Catholic Church, ignored, imagine that, at least 2 clear warnings and signs of his sexual interest in children. 2015, McSweeney was jailed for 2 years after being found guilty of assaulting a child. As part of McSweeney's defense at trial, he had said he was just too fat to fit a teenager on him, so therefore he was not able to abuse any boy. Stingmore was never brought to justice. He died weeks before the trial of both men was due to start. Another high-ranking predator that was known to visit the Elm House was Sree Smith, who was actually a member of Parliament. Sree Smith helped to found Knoll View Special School. He was the governor of the school with his own access because he had an all-areas passkey to the school for the next 34 years, which gave him lots of time to abuse kids. He was so obese that he had his own extra-large chair built for the school in order to abuse children on. His fetish was spanking and punishing children. Smith was bestie with Jimmy Savile, who is also a well-known predator. I'm sure you heard it. Is it Savile? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but you know I'm talking about this guy. David Higgins, a teacher at the school who was later convicted of child essay, held a young boy down while he was being punished and molested by Smith. Smith was taken into custody after police walked into a party at a house in London, and teenagers were found within the house. Underage minors were found in the house, but even though most of us would have went to jail, he was released within hours without charge. Carroll claimed to have a photo of Smith at the Elm House. Smith was known at the Elm House guest as Tubby and had once even got stuck inside of a bathtub. I'm sure you all heard of Sidney Cook, who along with his gang had been suspected of killing at least 20 children. They were eventually charged for the deaths of only 3 children, though. The connection to the Elm Guest House was through one of Cook's accomplices, Leonard Smith, who was actually a male prostitute at the Elm Guest House. So it could be very easily to connect not only SA to this house, but also murders to this house. There were so many different people linked to this house that I probably can't even go through everybody that was linked to this Elm Guest House. Just overwhelming amount of and sickening people were linked to this house, including murders. But what they all had in connection was that they enjoyed little boys. And it's just disgusting how much they got away with. Another boy went missing in 1979, 15-year-old Martin Allen. Authorities often link Allen's death with Vishal's. Allen's body was never found, though. Martin Allen's brother alleged that cops told him that he would get hurt if he asked questions about his brother's disappearance, after he told cops that he believed his brother's death was a top-level cover-up. Martin Allen was the son of the chauffeur to the Australian High Commissioner. So another higher up. Martin vanished on his way home from King's Cross, London to his Kensington home that is about 30 or 40 minutes from the Elm Guest House and Vishal's home. There was a man named Carl Beach who actually claimed to witness the death of both Vishal and Martin, but his allegations were allegedly proven to be false. Carl, however, was also a predator. Carl claimed that he was abused by his stepfather and forced to get involved with this VIP ring. Beach eventually went on to tweet and blog under the name Carl Survivor with graphic posts about SA and torture appearing on a website for those allegedly abused as children.
They knew where I was. They knew where I went to school. They knew everything.
3 of Beach's devices, 2 laptops, and an iPad contained hundreds of child essay images. Some of the images have been hidden behind an app that appeared to actually be a calculator. It also became clear that Beach was a perverted voyeur. He had installed a recording device in a toilet to secretly film a teen boy. Beach was eventually charged with 12 counts of perverting the course of justice and 1 of fraud. So Beach was allegedly proven to be a liar. But you could either think that, or you could think that Beach was set up to look like a predator too, in order to cover up for all the higher up officials. I'm just saying, just weird that he was also found with all this stuff on his computer. And then he came out and he accused so many higher up people of doing awful things. And if you want to go through his complete story, it can be found online. Eventually, they all said, well, he's a liar. And this basically, because of what he had done, made all the other witnesses look like liars and slowed the investigation. And eventually, they just quit investigating. So I'm going to leave that to you to think whatever you want to about Carl Beach. Just fishy, I'm saying. This whole thing is fishy. Yeah, it's either on all these cases like this, people mysteriously die from, killing themselves, or they get accused of things that is going to put them in prison where they can't talk. I'll leave it at that. In 2012, a 40-page dossier that accused 8 public figures of 114 documents just mysteriously went missing. These documents were said to be explosive and would blow the lid on establishment figures, including politicians engaged in child essay. A witness came forward and told investigators that he actually saw a car parked near where Vishal's remains were found. The car he saw was similar to a vehicle driven by a man named James Russell, who was part of the allegedly VIP child ring. Russell had said in the past that boys with an Indian heritage were his favorite to abuse. Another, Nicholas Douglas, had written a document he titled Vishal, which he finished a year after Vishal's remains were found. This monster worked at a school in London. Surprise! This document was about one of the children that Douglas had actually essayed. Douglas' mother lived in a village less than 5 miles from where Vishal's remains were found. That's my buddy. Hey, Bubba. What's it doing? I'm almost done. Just give me a minute, okay? Vishal's case was reopened in 2023. Vishal's dad believes Vishal's death involved a huge police cover-up in order to protect the higher-up individuals involved in the ring. He was diagnosed with cancer in 2023 and is still hoping for answers for his son's death. How heartbreaking is that he has found no answers?
My conclusion is very simple. They are potentially trying to brush this under the carpet as far as possible because of this problem having started 38 years ago. And I think they're just a bit too tired of it.
May you rest in peace, Vishal, and also Martin Allen. I hope one day that you get some form of justice. But somehow I don't see it happening. But we can hope. We can hope. Well, I guess I'll let you say bye to my numbnuts now. This is Max, my husband's dog, and Simon, I don't know. There he comes. There's my other buddy. He don't like these mics on my face. He jerks them off every chance he gets. Anyway, all right. Don't start squealing. All right. I'll see y'all next time at the Murder She Shed. We love y'all. I told someone not to get a German Shepherd if they don't like whining, because German Shepherds are full of whine. They're very expressive dogs. If you have one, you'll know. All right. See you later. See you next time at the Murder She Shed. Hopefully. Bye.
Do you love your mama? Do you love Murder She Shed? Do you love your subscribers? I knew you did. You're such a good boy.
There are families families out there searching of loved ones lost. There's a lifetime of hurting, praying one day they'll find the missing.